Believe me when I tell you that watching this movie at the cinemas was frightening and terrifying. What's up everyone, welcome back to another video here on my channel Royal Horror. I really hope that you're doing well, I really hope that you're okay and that you are just surviving, because nowadays all we gotta do is survive. So congrats to you for surviving, and thank you so much for deciding to spend some time with me talking about horror movies. I know your day is very busy, so I really appreciate that you click on this video to talk about movies in general. And as you know by the title, what we're gonna be doing today is I'm going to be reviewing the original 28 Days Later, released in 2002. Is anybody else out there doing the marathon of 28 Days Later and 28 Weeks Later, the sequel from 2007, before one of the biggest releases of the year, 28 Years Later? I'm very excited about 28 Years Later, but that's a topic for another video, because in today's video I'm gonna be focusing on reviewing the original. I'm so excited to review this movie because I've been wanting to do this for a while, because obviously this is like one of the biggest zombies or like infected virus kind of people movies out there, one of the OGs. So I'm very excited to do this. It's an honor, to be honest, and so many things to talk about it. So my relationship with 28 Days Later from 2002, honestly, when I first watched this, I didn't like it that much. I watched it for the first time on the pandemic, like the irony to watch this movie on the pandemic. But yeah, I didn't like it too much. I don't know if it's because when I watched this for the first time, I was not really aware of how the quality was from this movie, and that's something we're gonna be touching in a minute. So when I watched it for the first time, it was on DVD, on a big TV. So I was not the biggest fan. I didn't like it so much. I don't even remember if I rated it, because I was not using Letterboxd back in 2020. And ever since then I didn't rewatch this movie until this year, where my local cinema, Odeon, they decided to release this movie at the cinemas, like on the big screen. And obviously I booked my ticket. I was very excited because it was gonna be my first rewatch in years. When I tell you that when that day came, I was so excited. And when I watched that movie on the big screen, I fell in love with this movie. I love this movie so much. I gave this movie 4 stars out of 5, like 8 out of 10. It truly is one of the biggest cinematic horror pieces of art out there. It really is one of the OG zombie infected apocalypse kind of movies, and we're gonna be talking about it. So my relationship with this movie, honestly, I love it. It was an honor, it was a tragedy, it was terrifying, it was frightening, it was scary to watch this movie on the big screens. Jumping directly into the positive stuff, obviously, if I talk about the filmmaking of this movie, like the filmmakers behind this movie, I could spend hours talking about it. I could do a deep dive about this movie. But honestly, if you have the DVD or if you have the Blu-ray out there, definitely check the behind scenes of this movie, because I've watched a documentary here on YouTube actually, and I also watched Dead Smith's kill count on this movie. And obviously James, he gives so much info about the filmmaking of this movie, things that I didn't know, and it's honestly impressive. So I really recommend to go and check Dead Smith's episode on this movie, because you can learn so much about the making of 28 Days Later. So in today I'm just gonna be doing my personal review from this movie, and honestly, should I just talk about maybe the negatives from this movie first, because honestly it's so little that I have to critique from this movie, and I would like to focus more on the positives. So if I just talk about some negative aspects, because there isn't many to be honest, because this movie is 4 stars out of 5. But the only few critiques that I have to this movie is, I have to say that the last act, when the militaries come to place, honestly I was not the biggest fan, because I feel like the movie loses its spark for like a few minutes, for like a good 20 minutes, because we spend so much time with this military base, with these militaries, and I was not the biggest fan, because I love when apocalypse films focus on like average citizens going through this situation. So being with militaries for so long, it bored me slightly, not so much, but I'm glad that obviously what happens in the movie with this military base is more entertaining and it's more action packed. So I really like that the movie takes a different turn in like within 20 to 30 minutes from the military base, let's say. Another critique that I have to give to this movie is that I didn't like the romance that the two main characters developed, because I just didn't believe it. I feel like it was quite forced. I don't think it adds anything to the storyline. I wish that didn't come to place, because honestly, for me, it just didn't make sense. Obviously, it did make sense that they will like have feelings and things like that, but to fall in love, have a relationship and things like that, it didn't make too much sense, because what's happening in this movie, it takes place within like 1 or 2 days. So I don't think there was enough time for these characters to develop that relationship. So I do feel like the love storyline, the plot storyline in this movie is a bit annoying, let's say. And believe it or not, those are like the two critiques that I have from this movie. So not so much to critique about it, which is always a positive thing. So let's just jump to talk about the beauty of this movie. And one of the main things that I have to say about this movie is the use of location. I think using London as the landscape, or using UK but mostly London as the landscape for this apocalypse, for this infection to happen, was brilliant, and it's terrifying. And I don't know, it's because I live in London too, so seeing that those landscapes being so isolated, empty, when London is one of the busiest cities in the world, the fact that they shot this in the Big Ben area, in Westminster, in areas that are always busy, that was incredible. Like, I love that so much. And the fact that this movie honestly came out 2002, you know, that's way too long ago. That's like 20 plus years ago. And the fact that we're currently living on a post-COVID era, this movie hits differently, if you ask me, because those isolated scenes, that's how London looked during COVID, during the pandemic. So it's terrifying, because are we close or are we far from this happening? You tell me. Another positive aspect that I have to give from this movie is the feeling of isolation. I think Cillian Murphy, he did amazing in this movie. I think his performance, we can talk about the performances, because the performances from everyone are like, they were incredible. I think all of them had so much personality. They all were so badass. Like, I really liked all of the main characters, like the good guys, let's say, because they really felt real. They really felt like humans. They didn't feel like they were acting. You know, like our main guy, I loved that he knew how to portray this feeling of being concerned, being confused, not knowing what to do. The fact that he is the opening scene where he's just getting to discover his city being like this, in this condition, I think that was incredible. That's a storytelling right there, because he barely talks in the opening scene, you know, but yet you get to feel everything that he's feeling, and I think that was just incredible. And I also loved the fact that when he meets the other characters, how different of people they are, but how badass they are. Like Selena is one of my favorite characters in this movie, because she really is that amazing. I love the fact that she doesn't care if you are good, if you're bad, if you're a kid, if you're not a kid, but she will like save herself. I think that was incredible. And I just like the relationship between all of them. I liked how they get to be this human, or like how things are left behind. You know, the material stuff doesn't count. It doesn't matter where you come from. It doesn't matter your color of skin. It doesn't matter if you were rich, if you were poor. We all are in this place, and I think that portrayal was amazing, thanks to all of these characters. I do have to say that I just love the way this movie tells its storyline. I think the fact that this is like kind of like a road trip kind of movie, I think that was incredible. I love the fact when our characters are getting to see the city, when they come across other characters. That was also amazing. And most importantly, I love when the characters come across the infected people, you know, like the virus, the zombies. Let's call them zombies, even though we know they are not zombies. But nonetheless, I love that too. And let's just talk about the infected people, the virus, the zombies, because my gosh, they were so terrifying. The makeup, the plot, the acting, the performance, how real they looked. That was honestly incredible. I loved all of them. One of my favorite scenes is the one at the tunnel. I think the use of shadows in this movie was incredible, because you can tell they didn't have the biggest budget to always have somebody with makeup, but because of the use of shadows, the camera, the sound design, you will always feel that these characters were surrounded by zombies, and I think that was incredible. I also loved the way the zombies look when they are on screen. They really look like they are infected by a virus. And once again, the fact that this movie is taking place on this isolated world, and the fact that we are living post-COVID, makes this movie even scarier, because once again, are we far or are we close for this to happen? Honestly, I don't know, you tell me, you answer that question, but if I think about it, it's insane. Like this could happen anytime, any second, and that's terrifying. And the way the infected zombies are portrayed in this film is just, again, frightening, scary, and terrifying, because they looked like how someone would look if you were infected in real life. I don't know if that makes sense. Like, they don't look cartoonish, that's what I'm trying to say. They look like somebody is actually infected. Like, the makeup department in this movie was perfect. It looked so realistic. It looked like that's how somebody would look in real life if it came across an infected virus. Again, this might be an unpopular opinion, but I love the cinematography of this movie. I think it adds so much personality to it. I don't think this movie would have worked if it was shot with a very expensive camera, or if this movie looked sharp, clean, with detail, because the fact that this movie looks like the way it does, it adds so much personality to it. Because if you think about it, this is supposed to be like a post-apocalyptic kind of world. Like, this movie is infected, and I think that's why this movie looks the way that it is, and I think that was what's going through the director's mind. I'm so happy that this movie looks the way that it does. Honestly, it doesn't bother me. Watching this on the big screen, it was incredible, it was scary, and it was terrifying, and it's all thanks to the cinematography. But anyways, if we take the way this movie looks out of the equation, even though I love the way this movie looks, the use of camera is perfect. Like, some of the shots in this movie are actually insane. Apart from the wild landscape shots in this movie, I also think that the way this movie sometimes has the camera being turned upside down to the left or to the right when the characters are walking gives this feeling of not being equal. Like, gives this feeling of something is always off, and I think that was amazing. I also like the fact that this movie is a bit shaky here and there, but not that shaky to look like a fan footage. It's just shaky in a way where you feel what these characters are going through, especially when they're facing the zombies. When those two come together is incredible. Like, the way this movie is shot and the way the camera is used on those scenes, it just adds so much personality. And that's something that I love, because again, if this movie had used so many steady shots, I don't think this movie could have been able to communicate the feeling of isolation, fear, things like that, survival, because at the end of the day, this movie is a survival horror movie, and I got to have that interpretation thanks to, apart from the acting, thanks to the cinematography. The cinematography, it truly was something that I absolutely loved. One of the things that I love in this movie is how many devastating scenes are on this. How many sad scenes. I cried while watching this on the big screen, and I'm not even lying. There is so many scenes that are so sad and so human, and that kills me. For example, when our main character goes to his house and he gets to see his parents just being there, dead, laying down on the bed, that was sad. Also, when one of the main characters at the beginning of the movie, he gets infected because of an invasion, and Selena, she just has to do what she has to do. That was also sad. Also, when we get to have our teenage girl with her father, and then the father gets infected, that was also very terrifying, very sad, and it just makes you think, what would you do in these kind of situations? And that's something that I love from this movie, the fact that these characters make you think, what will you do in this situation? Like, you are in this character's shoes, in this character's pants, and I love following these characters because you just think you will react as they are doing in the film, but maybe you wouldn't. So it's a whole interaction and a whole communication between the movie and the audience, and that's something that I love from 28 Days Later. Listen, I could keep talking about this movie, I could keep uploading this movie because I really love it, but I'm gonna stop for now. All I have to say is watch this movie before 28 years later, because it really is worth it. It's the OG. This movie is so realistic, it's so terrifying, especially because of the era that we're currently living in. Again, I'm asking you the question once again, are we far or are we close for this to happen? Like, you just don't know. The fact that the directors and the filmmakers came up with this idea 20 plus years ago is terrifying, because this movie really hits home. And so yeah, I really applaud this movie because it really knew how to be this gem with, despite having this low budget, and that was incredible. And that's something that I will always love, I will always appreciate, and I will just always will want to rewatch this movie to have this feeling of the fear of being isolated in a busy metropolitan city, if that makes sense. So let me know in the comment section below, or let's talk about in social media, how do you feel about 28 Days Later? Do you like it? Did you enjoy it? Don't you like this movie? Let me know why. I would love to hear your comments. Are you scared of this movie? Let me know, and let's talk about 28 Days Later. But for now, I really hope you have a nice end of the day. I really hope that you have a nice end of the week. Take care of yourselves, especially after watching this movie. Really take care of yourselves. I will be talking about on my next video reviewing 28 Weeks Later, which I absolutely love. So spoiler alert, I love that sequel too. So I really stay tuned. Take care of yourselves. We will talk soon. Bye bye.